Hello, what we're going to be doing in this video is I'll be walking you through several examples of branching in Java. So the first example is a very simple example. What we have is we have a bank balance class. We have a couple of constants that have been defined: overdrawn penalty and interest rate. The user is going to go ahead and enter their checking account balance, and then we'll print out the original balance, and then we're going to check to see if the balance is greater than or equal to 0. If it is, then we'll calculate an interest for that month, and if it is less than 0, then what we're going to do is we're going to apply overdrawn penalty, which is $8. And then after that, we'll go ahead and print out the following 3 print statements. So what I'm going to do next is I am going to walk through this code, and what we're going to be using is we're going to be using the Java visualization tool. So let me just go ahead and copy and paste this. So I've opened up the Java visualizer tool, and let me just drop that information into the tool. And since we're asking the user for input, I'll just click on the standard in. And then the first time through, we're going to specify a positive account balance. So we'll specify a balance of $1,000. So we'll go ahead and visualize execution of the code. So what we have here is we have a couple of our constants have been defined for our overdrawn penalty and our interest rate. The next line of code, we're asking the user to enter their account balance. So we'll just forward on through. We have that prompt down below. And then what we've done is we've created our scanner instance called keyboard. And after that, the user has entered $1,000. So we've saved that into our variable called balance. I'll click on forward again. Now we're in our if statement, so we're going to check to see if it is greater than $1,000. Or greater than 0. It is. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop down into the statement below our if statement, and we will calculate the balance now, applying an interest rate to it for 1 month. So we'll click on forward. We've basically updated our balance with the interest rate. We'll click on forward again. And now we've dropped down, and we're going to execute the code after the if-else block. So we'll just go ahead, after adjusting for 1 month of interest and penalties, your new balance is $1,001.67. So that shows you what happens if the balance is greater than or equal to 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on edit code, and I'll put a negative amount in. So I'll put a negative $50 in, and we'll do the same thing. Okay, so after that issue with running it, we're having, again, we have our variables declared up above. We have our standard in of a negative $50, which is going to be our checking account balance. Our balance is saved into our balance variable, and then now we're in the if check. Negative 50 is not greater than or equal to 0, so we should fall to the statement under our else block, which we do. So that statement will get executed now. So what we've done is we've added $8 onto our negative balance, so it's now $58, and we will proceed on through. And we have a new balance of a negative $58. So just this walks you through just the execution of a simple if-else statement. So if we go back, what we're going to look at next is we're going to look at a simple greater example. So let me go ahead. So basically what we're doing in this example, we're prompting the user to enter their test score. And then we have a if-else-if statement. So if the score is greater than or equal to 90, it'll be A greater than or equal to 80, B, C, D, F. And then after we've determined what the score is, we'll go ahead and print the score and the grade. So we'll go ahead and walk through this program. Go ahead, click on Edit Code. I'll delete that, and we will go ahead and, so the first score, I'll go ahead and enter a score of a 59, and we will visualize the execution. So prompting the user to enter the score. Our standard in is a 59. It's created our scanner instance, and then now it'll go ahead and save our standard in into score for us. So it's a 59. So what we're doing is we're checking to see if score is greater than or equal to 90. It is not. Then we'll check if it's greater than or equal to 80. It's not. Greater than or equal to 70. It's not. Greater than or equal to 60. It's not. And then what it does is it falls through to the else, so our grade will equal an F. So our grade is now a F. So what we're going to do is we're going to print out our score, which was a 59, and our grade, which is an F. So let me just go ahead and click on the edit code, and I'll enter another value. I'll enter 81, and we will visualize execution. So again, we'll walk through the first few steps where we're creating the scanner object and gathering the input. So now we have a score of an 81. 81 is not greater than or equal to 90, so it will drop down. 81 is greater than or equal to 80, so it'll drop down. It'll go ahead and set our grade equal to B. And then what it does after that is it drops out of the if-else-if block, and then it'll go ahead and print out our score, which is equal to 81, and our grade, which is a B. So when you're working with if-else-if loops, the minute one of the conditions is true, it'll go ahead and perform whatever. In this example, it set our grade equal to B, and then it'll drop down fully out of the loop into the next statement within your program. So let me go ahead and run it one more time. So I will enter a 95 in here. Go ahead, visualize execution. And we will go ahead, walk through the inputs. So is 95 greater than or equal to 90? It is, so it'll go ahead and set our grade equal to A, and then what it'll do next is it'll drop down out of our if-else-if loop, and it'll go ahead and print our score, display our score, and then display our grade. Okay, so the next example we're going to look at is we're going to, instead of using if-else-if statements, we're just going to use consecutive if statements to kind of show you what the execution of consecutive if statements would look like. So let me just go ahead and copy that code. And we will go ahead and edit. Okay, and then we'll leave the same score of a 95. And we'll see what happens if we use consecutive if statements instead of if-else-if statements. So click on forward again. We've set our score equal to 95. 95 is greater than or equal to 90. So then our grade is set to A, but instead of following all the way through, what it's going to do is it's going to continue to execute the rest of the if statements. So we'll click on forward, it sets grade equal to B. Click on forward, it sets grade equal to C. We'll click on forward, it sets grade finally equal to D. And then after that, what'll happen is it'll finally drop out since there was that else statement. And what it'll do is it'll print out our grade equals to D. So as you can see, that is incorrect. So this shows you that if instead of using if-else-if statements to solve this problem, if you use consecutive if statements, you would get the incorrect answer if you kept them in the same order, checking those out. So when you have if statements, what'll happen is consecutive if statements, they will continue to get executed even if the first if statement the condition is true. So that'll continually executing those if statements, and then it'll finally drop out once it hits the if-else block down below. So let's go back and we're going to look at another example. So what we're going to look at in this next example is we've kind of rearranged our if-else-if. So we're checking to see if our score is greater than or equal to 60. If it's greater than or equal to 70, it's a C. Greater than or equal to 80, it's a B. Greater than or equal to 90 if it's an A. And else it's an F. So we're going to go ahead and run this code with the same score and see what happens. Okay, so it's a 95, so we'll go ahead and visualize the execution. Again, we've entered the score. We'll go down, keyboard. Finally, we have a score where it's 95. 95 is greater than or equal to 60. So what it does is it goes ahead and it drops down into this loop. So it'll set grade equal to a D. And then after it does that, since it's an if-else-if block, it'll drop all the way down and it'll go ahead and print our score is equal to 95 and our grade is equal to a D. So when you create your if-else-if statements, the order of the statements definitely does matter. So when you're creating those, you'll want to make sure and think things through. The best way to see if you've thought it through correctly is to use this Java visualizer tool. And then the final program we're going to look at is what we're going to do is we're going to look at a switch statement. So what we have here is the user's going to, or we're going to enter the number of babies, and depending upon the number of babies, we'll go ahead and print a specific message. So let me go ahead and Control C, and we will edit our code. And we don't need a standard in for this program since our input is actually in the code. So we've entered number of babies equals to 3. So it'll drop down into our switch statement, number of babies equal to 3. So now within our switch statement, what we need to do is, or what Java will do is, we'll find the case that matches. So we'll just go ahead, click on forward. Case 3 matches, so it'll go ahead and print out triplets. and then we hit our break statement. Once we hit our break statement, it'll drop us out of the switch statement. So basically what Java does when you're in a switch statement, it'll look through the various case statements. Once it finds a match, it'll go ahead and execute that code. And then if you have a break statement, it will drop you out of the loop. So what I'm going to do here is I will enter a case of 5 or 4 here. So what happened, the other thing you can do is you can specify multiple cases. So what will happen in this case, case 4 and case 5 will print out the same unbelievable message. So we're going to go ahead and walk through that here. So we'll visualize our code. We'll click on forward, number of babies is equal to 4. It'll go ahead and find the matching case, case 4. So what it does is it looks for the next line of code that is under those case statements. So it'll go ahead, print out unbelievable, and then print out the number of babies. And then if I go ahead and enter a 5, we should see the same result. Go ahead, visualize execution. Click on forward again. We're looking for number of babies. It's unbelievable because our case match is right there. We'll click on forward, and we'll click on forward, and finally it'll end. And then finally what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter 10, and we'll see what happens with this. So we'll visualize the execution of it. We'll click on forward, number of babies is 10. Since it didn't find a match in the 5 case statements up above, what happens is it falls underneath our default, and then it'll go ahead and print out I don't believe you, and then the program ends. So this video just walked you through various looping state or branching statements in Java, and kind of where you could actually visualize how the code gets executed using some of those branching statements. So that's all I had for the video. So we will talk to you next week.